I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Gadigal people. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
The Australian market, you can buy pretty much any fine wine, access any fine wine you want from anywhere, you know. The difference is, what is the experience that you are going to give your customer that'll make them stay? And I think retention is the big thing at the moment for us, particularly when it's tough.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Tamara Grischy is the General Manager of Langton's Fine Wines. Now, you might be familiar with Langton's as a wine auction house, but did you know that they have advanced into many avenues within the Australian wine industry? Tamara joins me to talk about the importance of this esteemed operation. Hi, Tamara. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Shanteh. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm firstly incredibly curious because as much as I know about the Langton's classification and just how important your work is, the operation side of things and how it all works is pretty unfamiliar to me. So I'm thrilled to have you on to answer some of my questions.
Hopefully I can answer them.
You definitely can. So firstly, let's start a little bit about you and how you got into this career. I believe that you have some hospitality in your blood, which is I'm always thrilled to hear. It means we'll get along fine.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question, Shanteh. I love my food. Which basically introduced me to the wine component. Yeah. I've got a interesting start, I suppose. I live today in the Macedon Ranges in Melbourne, which is basically the bottom of the Great Dividing Range and the highest point, I think, one of the highest points in the region of Melbourne. I'm about sort of 700 metres above sea level, which is important when you're talking about wine. However, I come from the other end of the Great Dividing Range, which is Port Douglas, which we sit just as the base, so far north Queensland above Cairns. And I was born and bred Port Douglas person, and my father and mother had a restaurant. So I grew up from 1978. They had a restaurant. My father is German, and wine to me was a natural drink, really. It wasn't unusual. It wasn't foreign. It was something that was part of my everyday life. And same with fine food, fine seafood. And so, yeah, I grew up in the hospitality industry, and it was just a natural part of my everyday life, the whole wine and food exploration. However, I went off to Sorry, Shanteh, you're going to ask a question?
No. It's pretty cool, and especially when you love it. But did you always like being around the restaurant scene? Did you think that your parents just worked tirelessly and you never got to hang out with them?
Absolutely. And to the point where my dad, because I love to cook, and, I've got 3 kids and they are all incredible cooks as well, and they've all learnt from him. But it's something that, seeing that pressure and that way of living, there is no way that I was going to be a chef or a restaurateur. I kind of got that very early on in my life. But I also was sent off to boarding school in Townsville. So, my mum always, makes the comment that, my matron at school brought me up, not them, which I say. So if she ever would complain about my behaviour or discipline, I'd have to say, well, you have to blame Mrs. Briggs for that. But, yeah, I certainly didn't love the work that was involved and the hours and trying to manage the family. I mean, before I went to boarding school, my parents really didn't attend any of my sports days or anything. It was tough because the hours are so long and not really supportive for a family environment. But, I found the love for wine through them, of course. I took a year off, a gap year, which I encourage everybody to do with all their kids to do when you finish high school. I was actually going to go off and do human movements, PE, physical stuff, because I was a sporting nut as well, right into my netball, my running, all of that. So I took a gap year, and throughout that gap year, I worked at home. I worked in Port Douglas. I worked in fashion retail during the day, and then I worked with my family restaurant at night. And we had special lunches and got involved in wine tasting, and that is where, as I said, wine was always part of my life. But then this year off really taught me, wow, this is fun. I really enjoyed meeting the winemakers and talking about wine and the distributors and little, the Cairns wine shows. It was run by Andrew Corrigan back in the day. And, I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. I think I want to do wine. Where do I learn to do this? And everyone said, you've got to go to Roseworthy. So I threw all the sports stuff out the window and I headed off when I was 19 years old down to Adelaide and went to Roseworthy, which was an agricultural college, and that was in 1990. So, yeah, threw everything away, but right from the start, for me, in life, you've got to do things you really, really enjoy. We work a lot and you've got to have fun. And I just went, wow, this wine stuff, I'm certainly having fun. It's a very social, it's the lubricant to friendships and learning about people and getting introduced to people. So I went off to Roseworthy, which was a real shock to the system. Whilst Port Douglas is far away, I think I can fly quicker to Auckland than I can to get to Port Douglas from Melbourne. But it was sophisticated. We were, there was a lot going on when I grew up. We had Christopher Skase building the Marina Mirage, and there was lots of tourists and lots of, new people coming in and lots of fun. And then suddenly, so I think we were very sophisticated and diverse and exclusive and all those good things about, society up there. And then I went to Roseworthy, which was a shock to the city. They all thought I was from the city, Shanteh. No, I'm not.
Says it all, doesn't it?
It does. I'm not from the city. And you got people doing circle work in the paddocks in their utes and totally agriculture society. But it was a lot of fun, and that's where I made my greatest friends, my great friends still today. Through wine and just started my whole actual learning and academic part of wine.
So many people that I have spoken to that went to Roseworthy tell me about their lasting friendships, and I think that's so wonderful. And I wonder sometimes if it has a little bit to do with being in a rural or regional area, that you do really, you don't have the excuse to be going out and seeing old friends. You really kind of bond with those people. I mean, you're like-minded, of course, but I do wonder if it's the location that makes a little bit of a difference.
I think so, Shanteh, because it's intense. I mean, you're in a little tiny community, and even where I live now up in Landsfield, the Macedon Ranges, north of Melbourne, we're in a tiny community, and you get to know everybody, which is the great thing about these small communities, and that's regional. And also from an agricultural college, I think there was 700 of us living on campus at the time, and it creates really intense relationships and also quick learning on how to be with people that are different to you. It certainly it tests you, your resilience and your ability to be kind and comfortable with other opinions, and you really learn a lot in those small, intense environments. And even, as I said, the regional, where I am in Landsfield, my husband and I, Matt, we have a lot to do with the community now, and we love it. It actually it makes us feel belong. It's important, I think, and that's, yeah.
Isn't it funny, because when you're younger, I think the idea of living in a town where everyone knows your name and knows your business sounds awful. And as we get older, when I was young, I wanted to be lost in a big city and for my actions to not have so many repercussions, and could go out and, I don't know, do drugs, do whatever, or do something and no one know. And now, as I'm older, I love being part of a community. I love belonging. I love having a sense of looking after people and people looking after me. And it's just so funny how it all turns about.
It is, Shanteh, and I must say that's why holidays and, time out is great, so you can get those city spikes. In saying that, with my 3 kids, I have a son who's 25 and 2 daughters, one 22 and one 18, and they're all like, Jai, my son, he's up in Healesville, he's a winemaker, so the wine blood is flowing through. My husband's a winemaker, so it's all kind of, they've all grown up in it. But he's in Healesville, but my 2 daughters are in the city and in Melbourne. And the thing is, they always love coming back to the farm. I need my farm fix. I need to come back. And there is a calmness and a mindfulness and a peacefulness and a relaxed and, experience and relationship that they have with the farm and the country. But then, we do the opposite. We go up over to Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane or overseas to get those Japan, to get the spikes of city life.
I think it's so great. I mean, especially as a mum, I can imagine that being instilled in them, like you said, that balance and that it's all available to you, but knowing that they like that sense of calm and that sense of space, that must be a relief for you, because you know that will probably increase over time as well.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah.
So, Tamara, tell me a little bit about your first role outside of Roseworthy and kind of what the steps were into your career.
Oh, wow. My first role really, after I finished Roseworthy, I moved to the Hunter Valley, and it was with Ian Riggs at Brokenwood. I did a bit of work at Mount Pleasant, and had the influence of Brian Barry, who was terrific. But really the big influence to me in my working life and my next stages of my wine involvement was at Brokenwood, where I learnt, and Ian Riggs was just incredible. I mean, that we often call Brokenwood today is, it's still the university, after university, post-grad experience, I suppose. But yeah, I went there and I did a lot of things. It was like an internship, I suppose. I planted some of the graveyards. I was in the vineyard. I did vintage in the winery. And then I did a lot of trade work in Sydney for Brokenwood. So I learnt everything and put it into practice and the experience of what I'd learnt from Roseworthy. And the Hunter Valley is another intense, small region. Gosh, we had a lot of fun. I think, I went to I was on the bottling line at 6 o'clock in the morning, a lot with hangovers, planting vineyards, a lot with hangovers. It was one of the, fun times of my life. But, from there, I just kind of caught the academic kind of bug, I suppose, Shanteh, and I thought, okay, I've been to Roseworthy, I've learnt wine, I'm now experiencing wine. Now I need to learn business. Now I need to learn a lot about business. So then I went to UTS in Sydney and did a business degree majoring in marketing. So, and throughout that period, I also worked with Brokenwood, which was absolutely terrific. But shit, it was a shock going from Roseworthy, where it was very laissez-faire, and everyone was just relaxed, and you did all your work, and then suddenly going into UTS, it was like, holy shit, this is really competitive. I actually have to do some work. So yeah, really fun time. And then I actually, during that period, I started with Langton's. I was finishing I kind of call my time with Langton's 3 lives in a way. I kind of started while I was finishing my degree in Sydney with Andrew Kayard, who was an incredible mentor, took me under his wing, and I started to learn about fine wine, just working in the cellar with him while I was finalising my Sydney degree, my UTS degree. And then I went to New Zealand with my fiance, Maddie. Maddie was my, partner, and then we kind of decided to get engaged, and he got asked to work as winemaker at Nautilus, which is one of the Alumba brands, and so we moved to Auckland, which didn't last for very long. I think we were there for 2 years, to Robert Hill-Smith's disgust with Maddie. But he actually got hunted to come back and start Shadowfax here in Victoria. And that's kind of where I really then started. I was coming back to Melbourne, and that's when I started my full-on journey with Langtons. And that was back in 98, early 98, where I started as marketing and valuation manager with Stuart Langton here in Melbourne, and then Matt was setting up Shadowfax here in Melbourne. So that was my first stint, and I was with Langton's doing that role. We basically moved, and as you said in the introduction, Shanteh, we were originally an auction house, and at that time when I started, we were in association with Christie's. And, the challenge for the business was we were very, very traditional. With live auctions, Stuart Langton was very innovative, where he tried to expand, I suppose, the amount of wine we had for sale without the boredom of sitting in a room and bidding live. He created a kind of absentee silent bid process, and was actually the first to do it ahead of, Christie's and Sotheby's and, all the other, major auction houses around the world at the time. So this would have, he actually started that silent bid auction process back in 89, 90, somewhere there. But then, we then morphed it in. My job was to morph it from this, online, live auction traditional process into the online world, because the internet was starting to, take place, and we had, things like the Wine Planet out there, if you remember that, back in 1999, 2000. Of course, your eBay, and it was only just really taking off. And we believed that auctions online would be a massive interactive and successful with our customer base. So we spent a good 2-3 years of moving the business into the online, which we launched in 2001. And it was interesting. I remember the day that when we launched ourselves online, we had, a team of people we'd brought in for the, those that week to answer phones and do all this work to, look after the customer, because it was going to be a very new experience for them. And I think we probably had 2 phone calls, and which was a real shock, because it was a massive, massive change to suddenly all the online bidding process to their usual, telephone bids or live room bids or the fax. But I think, when you reflect back, the success of this process and the service was that we had built trust through the use of the absentee process, through the use of the fax machine, which was, so technology really enabled, Stuart Langton back then to really develop and grow this absentee, silent bid auction process from the live room. And then next was the internet, which then enabled us to grow further. And it was really successful. We'd already built trust with the customers, and it worked very well. And then in 2009, so that's kind of my second part. And during this time, Shanteh, I had 3 kids. So I was pretty busy, and I did my MBA, because I always have this academic kind of, I just love to learn. And, and I think that's why I love wine so much. Apart from the social elements of wine, it's actually, you learn all the time. I don't think there's a day that goes by without learning something. It's an infinite learning journey, really, wine. You can open a bottle tonight and it tastes one way, and then in 2 days taste it again, it tastes something different. just that pure, just simply opening a wine. It changes with that act of opening the bottle, but it's just constant learning. And I think, for me, I just really enjoying that learning journey. So I did my MBA as well. And then in 2009, we sold to the Woolworths Group. So I had my kind of family, little small company life to suddenly morphing into this big corporation. And I had literally an shit moment, like, oh my goodness, what's this going to be like? Do I really want to do this? And I obviously really enjoyed it because I'm still there now.
So many changes, and like it blows my mind that you had 3 kids in that time, and to be doing all that. I mean, you and your partner are just a force to be reckoned with. I'm sure that when people meet you face to face, they're totally intimidated.
No, not at all. Not at all. I hope not. Look, it's challenging, and I wouldn't, change anything, but it is challenging. And, I have a lot of females, which is another, focus of mine, and trying to support and help females within the industry, within Endeavour Group, where we're, now, and in mentoring them through the challenges of being with corporations, with work, but also having a family. If you're a female who wants to have a family, and it's, often I get questions of how do you do it? This is really tough, juggling it. I said, well, you can't juggle it. You're actually all through your experience and your journey, you are beating yourself up because you're not feeling like you're being the best at your job, and you're not feeling like you're being the best as a mother, and you're juggling it. And that's all you can do. And you can't beat yourself up. You've just got to be comfortable with the fact that you're not going to be perfect. And, what's bloody perfection anyway? It's just, really, it's, you can have both worlds. And I know a lot of, mothers in leadership in organisations say, you can't have both. You can, but you have to be kind to yourself and let things go. And you know what? Children are really, really resilient. They are so resilient. They need consistency and love and security. And, I had an incredible carer that, in their first 2 years of their lives, Nella, who looked after them. And you kind of initially I was feeling guilty, but actually they really enjoyed it. And it was good for them to have other leadership and other people in their lives that they could learn from, not just from myself or Matt. But yeah, it's a juggle, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And I just say, just don't beat yourself up, never forgive. Don't worry about it. You just do what you can do as best as you can.
I think that's such wise words. I think I've heard a few saying you can have it all, but just maybe not all at the same time. And I quite like that. I think it's something similar you're saying is that, and you learn so much about yourself when you kind of step away and focus on something else. I certainly know that when challenges come up in work life now, because I have been more relaxed and taken some time out, I go, it'll be all right. Whereas before, I think before children, I would be very uptight about if anything was going wrong and it wasn't falling into place. And now it's going to work itself. It's okay.
It does. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, in terms of, what you've seen with online auctions, how you must have seen lots of ebbs and flows and changes. How do you feel about the Australian wine industry at the moment, and how is that affecting, auctions online?
Yeah, and Shanteh, we're also retail online, we're auctions online. We have a private client service, which is like a concierge service, a broker, which can help customers navigate, what is it that they like or want, what are they looking for. I'm really excited about the wine today. I think, the market is it's challenging at the moment. The market is challenging just because of the economics of the market, higher interest rates, all of that. But people, what we know with our business is customers are spending more on a bottle of wine. So that's a fact. We talk about trading up. They are, but then maybe not as frequent in their spend. So they are drinking less. And I feel very, very positive about where we are as an industry. We just have to really know what is our unique value that we're providing those customers within the current market environment. And, why should they choose us as a business, And I think that's, for me, really always at the top of my mind. It's always customer, 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 and more so in a tough market. In a challenging market, you need retention. You need to make sure your customers come back to you, because it's a very, very fragmented market in my end. Like, my average bottle price sits around the $80-$90. So I'm kind of at the at the top end, and that end is very fragmented. There are a lot of incredible wineries, direct. You go to the wineries and buy your wine direct from them, or retailers in that end of the market. And with that fragmentation, and in a tough market, it's all about, well, why do you choose me, Langton's as a brand? Why do you stay with me? And it's about, that unique value proposition, but experience, because really, the Australian market, you can buy pretty much any fine wine, access any fine wine you want from anywhere. The difference is, what is the experience that you are going to give your customer that'll make them stay? And I think retention is the big thing at the moment for us, particularly when it's tough, But in terms of the wines that Australia is making, I'm so excited, and I think we are now coming into that mindset, that belief that actually we no longer need to compare ourselves to Burgundy, or Bordeaux or Barolo or the Napa or the other. We are great, and we are recognising and believing in ourselves for what we have that's uniquely Australian. It's actually not even uniquely Australian. It's uniquely the Yarra Valley, uniquely the Barossa, uniquely, Coonawarra. And I do believe we're at that next stage where we are believing and we have confidence that we no longer have to compare ourselves. But really the challenge is to, and I see, we're talking about the classification, which is your form guide to Australia's finest, and it's based on our customer activity, Shanteh. It's actually, we analyse our customer bidding behaviour, and we come out with this form guide which comes out every 5 years. But our job, from a Langton's perspective with the industry, is to highlight those wines globally and really start talking. And we have a global market, but, it's something that we can amplify, I think. But, yeah, I'm really positive about the industry. I think we are getting to that confidence and belief stage. The market's tough, but look after our customers, find that unique prop, but also the team. Your team is so important. Team eats strategy and everything for breakfast, your culture of your team, as you know, that saying.
Well, it's very true. And yeah, sometimes those sayings kind of wash over us, and then one day you think, oh my God, it's so true. I've been hearing it for years. Tell me, for anyone that doesn't know about the Langton's classification, can you give us a little kind of brief history about how that started and a little bit more detail?
Yeah, sure. So going back to Stuart Langton, who actually started Langton's, and he started Langton's. He was actually working at Fowles Auctioneers. This is like early 80s, essentially. And he was there as a general auctioneer supporting their business, and he started to see wine come into the system. And then he went, something is interesting here. There's starting to be a bit more of a demand for wine, and then fine wine. And then he said to the Fowles Group, look, I want to head out and do this fine wine auction thing. I think there's something here. And they went, yeah, okay, sure. So he then took that business from Fowles and set up Langton's fine wine auctions. And with that, in a couple of years, following the 1855 Bordeaux classification, using that as an example, Andrew Kayard, his Master of Wine, came on board, and basically, we need to give some sort of direction and ranking and help the customers understand and navigate what is fine wine from an Australian context. And using that Bordeaux classification, which is basically, a benchmark of what are the great wines to look at, and they have 5 different levels. But the difference is that it doesn't change. I think there was one change with the 1855 classification in 73 with Mouton Rothschild that became a first growth. But apart from that, it's never ever changed. Where the Langton's classification, it is released every 5 years. And when it was first released, we had 34 wines on it. It was 1990, and it was defined by the bidding and trading behaviour of the customers from a pricing perspective and the actual volume of bidding. And we call it the currency of a wine because you also need to take into consideration the supply of a wine. So, for example, you might have someone like Bass Phillip Reserve, a wine like Bass Phillip Reserve come through, and it's hotly demanded. The pricing is off the charts. Its clearance rates are 100%. And then you might have a wine like Penfolds Bin 389, where it's hotly demanded, clearance rates are 100%, but there's far more of it at a different price point. So you need to take into consideration the supply as well. So we look at supply, price, and bidding behaviour, and we call that kind of currency. So 1990 was its first release, and we had 34 wines. And we release it every 4 to 5 years, and we do that because we want to reflect the changing of the market. Unlike the 1855, as your listeners will know, is the 1855. Sometimes your second growths, like your Leoville Lascasse, for example, gets first growth prices, or Montrose, so pricing can be a bit all over the place because the market is changing, the pricing and the demand and the quality and all these things are changing, but it's still fixed and set in stone, that 1855, where we believe we want to reflect the market. So we change it every 5 years. The current edition is 8 years old, and this edition has 100 wines. The previous edition, there was 136 wines. So we've actually, with this classification, there's been a lot more change than ever. We released the list in 2018, and what we found is there's a real increase in demand for Chardonnay, your Pinots, your Grenaches, your kind of, lighter, if you want a mid-weight sort of styles. And then there's a real shake-up within the Barossa Shiraz, for example, those big styles, which are changing, and we will see. And we had some, Barossa styles also come in to, or have other wines that are entered in, like your Standish or your Semiote come in. But again, when you look at those styles, they're very elegant. They're kind of midweight. They're not, these big, ripe, traditional kind of Barossa Shiraz styles. And then, Semiote's, got Grenache and other varieties as well. But, yeah, it's a form guide. It's a great, we do tasting events. We did tasting events last year, which had about 3,000 people attend the events, where all the wines are on tasting, the 100 wines. It's 2 tiers. Forgot to mention the tiers. So when we first started, there were 3 tiers, and it went to 4 tiers, and now we're back to 2 tiers. In the past, we had words like the top tier was exceptional, and the next tier was outstanding, and the next tier was excellent. And what we found was it was semantics, a lot of it, Shanteh, is people getting confused. Well, what is outstanding to exceptional. So we actually have done a major modernisation of the classification with this current release. And there's 2 tiers. First classified, again paying tribute to, the 1855 first growth kind of approach, first classified, and the next tier is classified. So we really wanted to simplify it, but also the wineries don't say, oh, I'm in exceptional or I'm in outstanding. They say, I'm classified. And that's the language that we want to use. You're all classified, 100 of you. There's just a first classified that's right at the top. Yeah.
I love, the philosophy behind, paying homage to perhaps where we've come from as a young nation, looking to, older countries that have a longer history of growing grapes, but that confidence of coming into where we are now in Australia and not needing to compare. And I feel that Langton's has wholeheartedly endorsed that in their company, in that we don't need to make these references anymore, and we need to do what suits our market and our country, and that is that adaptation and keeping up to date, and we're not bound by these old legalities of, perhaps where France does, and that's why we can produce wine like we can do today, and pop in Riesling with Shiraz or whatever the hell we want to do, and that's the beauty of this amazing country.
Totally agree. We have the flexibility. I mean, you could say we're still young, but we do have the oldest Shiraz vines in this country, and I think the Cabernet as well. But we have the flexibility, and you can say, or could say, maybe our greatest region has not even yet been discovered, Shanteh, and there's lots of, experiment going on, and, we're planting vines in new different places, and there's so much learning going on, but absolutely. And I think, watch the space with the classification and what I was saying earlier on about being proud and really promoting globally. This is us. This is fine wine. These are the greatest wines in the world. We will be using the classification to do that. And that's partly, we've got first classified. What we are working on is we will have first classified pinged against first classified international. So we'll start analysing, what are the international wines that, are demanded here in our market, and we'll benchmark them right up against our first classified. And we will have no problem in doing that, putting your Bass Fillet Reserves and your Bindies against, DRC. So watch that space. That's working. Well, I think that's absolutely the next stage, and there is real belief. We are making some of the most beautiful wines in this country, and in this world, I should say, internationally. It's really important. Yeah.
Maybe you just need to change the language. Instead of first classification, it can be Bonza, and then the second classification can be like You Beaut.
You Beaut, exactly. Absolutely.
I think, it's so exciting when we talk about Langtons and why people choose to, do business with Langtons. I thought about perhaps what my philosophy would be on that and why I would recommend, and I have done on many occasions, on people to look to Langtons. And I thought the first 3 words I can think of are knowledge, trust, and reliability. And I thought, that's, I think, why people know that the people that work behind Langtons have a huge amount of knowledge. They're very trustworthy in that your wines are in very, very good hands, and that time after time it's quite reliable. And I think that is probably 3 very good words to have associated with a brand.
I love that, Shanteh, and I can't trump that at all. I think that, that's a good word for today, isn't it? I think I've got Trump on my brain today.
Oh, God, please don't.
Oh, God, I know. I think because he got, sworn in today. So the news has just been Trump. But, yeah, I don't know if I could, but absolutely. I think knowledge and trust and that consistent reliability is absolutely key to our customers' experience with us. Absolutely critical.
Now, you also do a bit of education as well. So if people are looking to expand their knowledge, what's that kind of offering that Langtons, can give? I
think, Shanteh, it's our tastings. I think the best we have a lot of content on our site, right? That's the first thing. Then the best way to learn about wine is to experience it and actually taste it. And we have a lot of tastings that we do, which can be, intimate, fine dining or walk around tastings. And I think that's the best learning place. The other third element is our private, client managers. They take you on the journey and can introduce you and understand, what are your loves, what do you like, what do you want to get out of your wine learning this year. And I think they're really, really important to really provide that one-on-one understanding that you can talk to. They're at, you can contact them pretty much any time, and they'll help you developing your knowledge and finding wines that will actually challenge and, really extend your understanding of all the great things about wine and bring new things. As I said right from the start, there's infinite learning. I mean, I don't, with yourself, Shanteh, I don't think there's a day that goes by that we don't learn something about what's in the bottle, who's made it, where's it growing, all of that stuff, winemaking techniques. Aging,
yes, it's the best part about it. It's also frustrating as well sometimes, I find, when you think you've wrapped your head around something and you think, oh no. But
I know, that's the challenge, to simplify it. Yeah.
Now, is Langton's only for people that really know their stuff? What about if you're kind of, quite new into wine? For me, Langton's feels pretty serious. Is somebody who's just learning that wants to know more, is there a space for someone, that can come in, have some fun without feeling like they're, being schooled?
Absolutely. There'd be a fourth word that I'd add to your list of knowledge, trust and reliability is approachability. We are very, very approachable, and we encourage, consumers out there who are starting on their wine journey to contact us, because we're absolutely very easygoing people behind the brand, and we have, simple tools to help you learn quickly and make you look good at a dinner table with other wine heads potentially. But yeah, I think the private client services is a great entry for people who want to know and learn more about wine. And the other side is auctions. Pretty much everybody knows how to play an auction because of eBay, etc., all those other marketplaces out there. And you don't have to spend a lot of money. We can also guide you. It's a lot of fun, but you also can experience things that are not available generally out there in retail world at, back vintages and, just different styles for not great, amounts of, money at all. And it's fun.
Well, I mean, I think there's so many, like you said, there's so much to Langton's. There's so much that you guys offer, and it's an incredible world. I've had great experiences, passing on details from friends of mine that have had collections and trying to move them in a space. So, you're doing an amazing job, and it's been so lovely to have a chat with you. I do have one last question for you, which I pump everybody with, and that's just, if you could only drink 3 drinks for the rest of your life, what would they be and why?
Well, 3 drinks. Okay. The first one would have to be tequila. Oh yeah. You've got to have tequila in your life. It's flexible. You can have shots, or you can have margaritas, you can have palomas, or you can have some Tomases, which is a Tom Collins with tequila rather than gin. Tequila is it inspires you, it picks you up, and I've morphed recently into tequila the last couple of years, away from gin so much, because gin is just like, a happy place, kind of. It can get you down a bit, I suppose, if they want to say that with gin. But generally, tequila is my choice of spirit. Chardonnay is my other one. Chardonnay. I can't pass Chardonnay. Chardonnay is probably the variety, I should say, that I drink the most of, because you can get great Chardonnays at $15 and amazing Chardonnays at $1,000 for all over the world, different styles. You know, Chardonnay is definitely, I couldn't live without Chardonnay. And then lastly, to cover all my red kind of needs, it has to be Wendouree. So I am going to call out a brand, and it has to be Wendouree because, you know, with those wines, regardless of whether it's their Cabernet or their Shiraz or their blends, I usually love probably more so their blends. They can always, you know, be on point with my red needs. So they're the three, and why.
I love that. Trying to figure out the magic of Wendouree is just an ongoing story, I think. And I think it's almost like falling in love with a person. You know, those wines have so much character and they speak so much of the place and the history that, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're having this Shiraz, Malbec or whatever it is, you're like, oh my God, that person or that aroma or that, it's just like gets into your skin. So 3 amazing drinks. I expected you to have very, very good taste, and you certainly do. Tamara, it's been such a joy. I would love to continue our chat, and hopefully, you know, we can talk a little bit more about things down the track, but you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that our paths cross in person sometime.
Oh, me too, Shanteh. Thank you so much for inviting me. I've loved every minute of it, and yes, very happy to catch up anytime, and I'd love our paths to cross. I think it'd be awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers to you. This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram at overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.